Hi, my name is Denise Hurley, and I want to welcome everybody to Journeys. This is a Zoom special edition of my show, Journeys. I am here with Ceylan Rowe from Northborough, Massachusetts. Ceylan is running for state representative for the 12th district. Harold Naughton is presently the state representative for the district, but is stepping down. Ceylan is one of 3 women running for the open seat. Welcome to my show.
Thank you, Denise, so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, that's great. We're so happy that you're on. So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can get into the reasons why you were running?
Yes, so before I begin, I just want to give my sincere condolences to anyone who's lost a loved one during the pandemic. It's been a difficult few weeks and months, and so I just want to extend my condolences. I'm Ceylan Rowe. I'm running for state rep. I launched my campaign back in November. I live in Northborough with my husband and 2 children. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. Prior to launching my campaign, I had a socially responsible e-commerce business. I've been a commissioner for the Metros Commission on the Status of Women, advocating for legislation related to women and girls for many years. I've been endorsed by Senator Jamie Eldridge and Representative Jack Lewis because of the commission work that I've been doing. I am finishing up my MBA at Babson. I have a political science and international affairs degree at Northeastern, where I met my husband actually at the first day of orientation. I've been very active in the Northborough community. I am an active member of the Northborough Democratic Town Committee. I am a member of the Northborough Junior Women's Club. My son started middle school this year, which was a bit terrifying, but I'm active in the PTO there. And I used to be the Girl Scout leader for my daughter's troop for many years.
Okay, wow. Quite a bit going on for you. Oh, okay. Okay. So why are you running for the 12th district state representative seat?
So I launched back in November for several reasons. One is I truly believe that our district deserves a full-time legislator committed to working hard for our district. I commit to being a full-time legislator. We deserve a legislator that is transparent about how they vote, and that's why I signed the transparency pledge when I first launched. We deserve a legislator who is accessible, who hosts meet and greets and town halls, whether virtually or in person. And we deserve a passionate champion fighting for the issues directly affect our lives. It's not enough for us to have a legislator that puts their name on a bill and then does nothing else. We need a champion at the State House. And as a small business owner and as a commissioner, I can't tell you how many events and meetings I've been to in the district, in the region, at the State House, where I see a lot of state reps and state senators. And they're very active in advocating for the needs and concerns of their constituents. And we did not have that presence. Our rep and their staff have not been present in a lot of meetings that I've been to. And that's just not acceptable. We deserve someone fighting for us full time. And that's what I pledged to do.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you'll be representing 5 different towns. And different towns. I'm sorry? Is it 6?
It is 6.
Okay. Sorry. 6 different towns. What did I miss?
So we have Berlin, Boylston, Clinton, Lancaster, Northborough, and Sterling. So Northborough and Sterling are half districts.
Okay, so I guess I think I missed Boylston when I was counting up the towns. Okay, thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, so these different towns have different needs. How will you assess the needs of each town and then address them? And you did mention that you wanted to be more accessible, so would you hold office hours, town halls locally for your constituents? And then will you take the input from both town administrations as well as townspeople regarding issues?
Absolutely. So Over the past 7.5 months of campaigning, I actually hosted meet and greets throughout the district, at coffee houses, spoke with residents, spoke with business owners. I've had phone calls with town administrators, town selectmen, select board members, school committee members. I've had conversations with economic development committee members. I've been very active in trying to listen to the needs and concerns of the district for the past 7.5 months, and that is absolutely what I would continue to do. I've actually I do interviews with people, and I have a YouTube channel. It's Ceylan Rowe for Rep. I have them on my social media, but also on YouTube. And so I absolutely believe that we should have a legislator who would hold office hours at different times, right? Sometimes during the weekday, sometimes at the weekend. People have different working hours, and it's really important that our legislator accommodates those needs. And with Zoom now present in our lives, that's actually easier to do.
Right. Yeah, it's a great tool, and I think you probably could reach out to a lot more people using that tool. So I guess I know for me, it's very hard to reach out to seniors a lot of times. And how would you do something like that? I was just thinking about that right now, because I know, especially for seniors trying to get to town meetings or elections and that type of thing. So how would you reach out to them?
So I have been.
Okay.
So prior to COVID-19, I actually was visiting the senior centers. I had the opportunity to visit the Lancaster Community Center and attend the pancake breakfast. It's important that our legislator goes to the places where the community is. And in Berlin, there's 19 Carter. So I was able to go and visit community members there. I would love to hold office hours at 19 Carter, or at the Clinton Senior Center, or the Northborough Senior Center, or the Lancaster Community Center. It's important to do that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, in this new age of COVID-19, how will you support our local businesses and workers who are feeling the incredible impact of the lockdown and reopening of the state? That's a new normal, I guess. So, how would you deal with that?
Yeah, so there's a lot to say about that, right? I've been talking with local businesses and economic development community members, and here's what they've been telling me. One, there's a lack of access to banking funds. So even if the federal government is providing funds, not everybody has access to it. The money runs out very quickly. And sadly, some of our local businesses have closed permanently, which is just incredibly unfortunate. One other thing that I've been hearing is that there's no central location for businesses to access resources, information, loan, and grant programs. And some of those grant programs are coming actually from our local business bureaus. So there's a wealth of information out there, but no central location. And that's why on my website, I actually have a COVID-19 section to provide people with resources that I'm finding out about. Another reason why I'm running is because I feel like there's an industry that is completely forgotten, that doesn't have a voice actually at the State House, and that is the growing industry of these sole entrepreneurs and these micro businesses that have less than, they have one person, two people, 5 people, 10 people, are working at home or in these co-working spaces. And so, so whether individuals start off as a hobby or a side gig, or parents are caring for children or their parents at home, it's a source of income for them. So they don't have a voice. And in Massachusetts, we actually have the highest LLC fee in the country. So in order to start a business, you actually have to pay that $500. And before COVID-19, that was a huge issue that I was hearing about. And certainly it's going to be a huge issue now. And it would be, the legislature right now could put a moratorium on the LLC fees to help the community members so they could build their own economic stability. And we just talked about businesses, but let's also talk about the workers, which are incredibly important. Workers here in Massachusetts, people have, the 25% of our population actually has filed for unemployment because of COVID. And there are a lot of people suffering. Governor Baker issued a 4-phase approach to opening up our economy. Businesses can begin in May. However, childcare centers cannot open till the end of June. And so with kids at home and doing online learning, how is this going to work? Many workers were not able to stay home, and some of them, for those returning to work, it's vital that businesses adhere to the social distancing guidelines and provide the necessary PPE equipment for workers to ensure their safety. We have to take care of each other in order to move forward.
Right. Right. And another challenge, educating our children. And what's your vision for the new education system that will be brought forward? Obviously, things have changed quite a bit with our children. How will you work with the various school administrations to help them navigate this?
Well,
tell me a little bit about that.
I just want to commend the teachers and principals and administrators who, and all the staff at the schools who have risen to the challenge during this past 2 months. As a mom with a 10-year-old and 12-year-old who are both in 4th grade and in 6th grade, it's been a challenge to do online learning, and very entertaining at times to see my children navigate Zoom meetings, class, or band practice. I recognize the hardships. My concern is 85% of our district 85% of our district has access to broadband, but there is a percentage that does not. And I'm concerned about the children who don't have access to technology. So it's vitally important that our state continues to fund our schools or to ensure that that the children have access to technology in order to do online learning. And of course, I'm concerned about the parents and the children being home, and when parents do go back to work, how are we going to navigate that? And so I look forward to talking to school administrators and seeing what their needs are and how the state could better help them.
Yeah, actually, I didn't even think about that when parents do start going back to work. What happens with the children? Because obviously they're not going back to school for quite some time. So that's a really good question to ask. What happens?
Yeah.
And you have to, and the need is to go into the schools and talk to the administrators and say, okay, where do we go next?
Yep.
Yeah, didn't even think about that. Wow. Okay. All right. Tell me a little bit about gender equity. What is that, and what does it mean to you? Also, interesting enough, Betsy DeVal just changed the guidelines regarding sexual assault on college campuses. It seemed to me that this is an important piece for you. How can this be addressed, obviously, in light of this current administration?
So gender equity is something that is near and dear to my heart. So where do I begin? The simplest way to define it for me is equal opportunity for anyone, regardless of their gender. And so we could talk about business. We could talk about gender equity. So when I first graduated college, my first job, I did not get paid equitably. The gentleman who had it before me was getting paid more. It was not because he was more qualified. And I remained silent about that. I did not feel empowered to speak up. I thought I was just supposed to be quiet and be grateful. But I had no idea of what a huge issue it was until, several years later. And then there started being advocacy days at the State House about equal pay. And this was before I was a commissioner. I didn't know anybody. I just started showing up because I was just so angry about it. And I didn't want future generations, future women, other women to go through what I went through. And so when we talk about gender equity, it's not just the women's issues, it's also family issues. So if women aren't being paid equitable, then they're bringing less money home. They're bringing less money to pay for food. They're bringing less money to pay for childcare, for the monthly expenses, for retirement. This is not okay. We don't benefit in our society when this happens. And then we could talk about starting a business. So I'm curious, actually, with all the funds and the grants that are being provided to businesses that do have access to that fund, how many of them are actually women-owned businesses? Now we could talk about childcare. Actually, in Massachusetts, there's a bill right now. Right now, you could use campaign funds to rent a tux, but you cannot use campaign funds for childcare. And that's not equitable. That's not fair. It prevents mothers from running for office. And so we could talk about a lot of things. And in Massachusetts, actually, regarding Betsy DeVos, the Secretary of Education, and her new guidelines is just horrifying. 1 out of 5 freshmen women are sexually assaulted. And these are those who report it. And we believe that the number is actually higher. So what's going to happen after these guidelines? And what message does this send to our daughters? What message is this sending to our sons? I'm just really, really, really nervous, really terrified, horrified. I'm proud to say that my commission actually is going to be hosting an event regarding this topic and what we could do, because doing nothing is not an option. And then I actually started my journey to activism and women's rights back in high school when I found out that 1 out of 4 women in the United States will be or have been in an abusive relationship, physically, emotionally, and I was horrified. And I'm like, how can this be happening in the United States? And I'm really sad to say that 20 years later, that statistic has not changed. And so when we talk about electing people, are we electing people who just slap that name on, their website or their marketing materials? Or are we? I think it's important that we have a champion fighting for these issues, saying enough is enough. We have to do better as a society. Domestic violence impacts our economy by $6 billion a year in the United States, $6 billion, because we're not addressing this problem. So people, survivors of abuse, are too scared to go to work or unable to go to work because they're hospitalized. We can't keep ignoring these problems. All people should have opportunities regardless of their gender.
Okay. All right. All right. Going to another subject. Regarding healthcare. Here in Massachusetts, we're pretty lucky fortunate to have a progressive healthcare system. What more can you do to strengthen it for all of us, especially seniors and the veterans and other vulnerable populations?
So, those in Massachusetts and a lot of people outside of Massachusetts tend to think that we're super progressive, right? We have women's rights, we have great education, we have great healthcare system. While we do, I would argue it's not good enough. A lot of people, the majority of people in Massachusetts have healthcare, but they're still paying monthly expenses for copays. And I've talked to members of our community who pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars every month because of copays. People are drowning in medical debt. In the United States, 500,000 people go bankrupt, have medical bankruptcy. And that's just unacceptable. It's really not. And we don't have to live this way. When you look at other countries in the world, they don't have these types of problems. And it's just heartbreaking because people deserve better. And that's why I'm in favor of better, a better healthcare system for us in Massachusetts.
Okay. Okay, what are your ideas to address climate change?
Well, Denise, I would argue that ideas are not enough, that we have to take action. But wouldn't it be nice that if we responded to the climate impact, the climate, wouldn't it be nice if we took seriously, excuse me, I'm sorry,
Take your time. It's okay.
We have done a lot. Obviously, we need to do a lot with COVID-19. Our response has been quick. It's been, well, I don't know if it's been quick enough, but we've responded to it. Wouldn't it be nice if we responded to climate change the same way? Action speaks louder than words. I'm someone who has an electric car. I have solar panels on my home, and I've been throughout the district, and people tell me, oh yes, I would love to get solar panels. I would love an electric car. It's just not affordable and accessible to everybody, and we need to change that. We also need to add more charging stations throughout the Commonwealth. And reduce our use of plastic waste. I actually interviewed some high school students who were some community members instrumental to passing the plastic bag ban in Northborough. And we need to do more reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, and we need to take bold action.
I wanted to go back to healthcare. I just, what would you do? I mean, how would you change it? Is there any specifics that you have in changing our healthcare? Medicare for all, that type of thing? Or, how do you change the co-pays? You mentioned how much people are paying out of pocket. What do we do?
Yes, I am in favor of Medicare for all. I know that's a buzzword and a hot topic for people, but I have done a lot of due diligence. Senator Jamie Eldridge has been a mentor, and he's endorsed me, and he's been really instrumental in being vocal about this. And the more doctors I talk to, the more parents and community members and seniors that I talk to, really we have to change this. We really have to have a system that works better. I actually have family that live overseas, and one of my friends, unfortunately, their child had cancer, and it cost them nothing for their child to get the necessary medicine and medicine to help her. And I'm happy to say that she's cancer-free right now. But in the United States, I called Boston Children's Hospital, and it would cost $1 million to care for your child if you don't have health insurance, if your child had cancer. We can't continue to live this way. We can't. We don't have to. And I look forward to working with different legislators, working with Senator Eldridge, working with healthcare professionals to really come up with a system that works for everyone. And we can't have people go bankrupt. It's just not fair.
All right. Okay. Our criminal justice system. How would you tackle that? What would you do differently?
So with my commission, we have been addressing this. As a commissioner, we actually visited the state women's prison with Senate President Karen Spilka, Representative Jack Lewis, and other legislators. And our current rep was not present, nor was his staff. And we went there, and here's a few takeaways that I had and concerns that I had. Is they have training certificate programs. So the idea is that you learn a trade and then you leave, and then hopefully you get a job. One of the certificate programs is cosmetology. And I've talked to women who were formerly incarcerated, and they said that they're not getting jobs with cosmetology because people don't want to hire someone who was formerly incarcerated and give them scissors and to interact with the general public with that.
Really?
So then the question is, why are they having this program then? Mm-hmm. Another concern I had was, Massachusetts has great higher education. We have great community colleges, state colleges, private colleges. There was only one college that actually had classes for those who are incarcerated. I would argue that we need more. The majority of people who go to prison actually leave. I believe the percentage is 10% or less are there for their lifetime. And so if people are going to integrate back into the community, we should provide them with the necessary tools for them to succeed. Another concern that I had was when somebody is released, they literally are dropped outside with $50, and then they're on their own to figure out a way to go home if they have a home, or to go somewhere. They have to figure out their own transportation, their own housing. And oftentimes people go back to situations that got them there in the first place. So maybe home isn't a safe place for them. And so my concern is what can we do better to reduce the recidivism rate, to help these people succeed? There needs to be more support given so that these individuals could succeed.
Yeah. And the majority of folks, it's substance abuse that puts them in prison. And so how are your feelings about programming for those folks? I mean, trying to help them before they even get to that point. I mean, more recovery homes, more programming, that type of thing.
Yes. And I've talked to our police officers throughout the district. They've actually joined me on these meet and greets. They're at the coffee shops, and we had great discussions about this. And they don't want to arrest people with opioid addiction. I mean, it's just it's growing, and they don't want to arrest these people. And these people need help, right? And so we actually need to invest more.
Okay, all right. So you would be in favor of more funding for programs, recovery programs, houses, halfway houses, that type of thing. Okay. Right. All right. Now, gun violence. How do you feel about gun control and the gun violence that's going on, in this country? What can we do?
So as a mom, every day when my children went to school, I would always have a moment where I just would hold my breath and just, say a few thoughts and think, I hope that my children and all their friends and the students and the teachers and the principal and the staff, the cafeteria workers, the custodial staff, all have a safe day. I do that every single morning. And we don't have to live like this. It's quite sad that we live like this. I've been interviewing a lot of a few high school and college students, and this is one of the main topics that they talk about, they're passionate about. So in Massachusetts, we have decent common sense laws, but there are some good bills now that would help reduce the gun violence, and I support these bills. Some of that, but they've been stuck in the Public Safety Committee. One of the bills is to improve gun data reporting and analysis. So we currently collect data on crime guns, but don't do anything with it. So this would help us understand where they're coming from. I also support bills such as prevent illegal trafficking and gun violence, and to regulate bulk firearm purchases.
Okay. Now, how do you feel about the buyback programs that I think Boston has been doing every once in a while? Do you think that type of thing is effective?
I do think it's effective. I know in Northborough we've done it too.
Oh, okay. Yep. All right. How would you address the needs of the LGBTQ, people of color communities in light of the rise of hate crimes?
Yeah. As a Muslim American woman, and I was born and raised here, my parents are immigrants, I have received a lot of hate throughout my life. I have been bullied in school. I've had garbage thrown at me. I've had people say awful things to me. So this is my life, unfortunately. When we have government leaders stoking hate, it inevitably grows. There's a strong link between hate speech and actual physical violence, and Massachusetts must stand by our values and reject all types of hate. It's important to elect people who respect the humanity of all of us, and elect people from communities that understand that hate crimes more personally, we have to do better. It's important to have a seat at the table. So in Massachusetts, we actually have never had a Muslim American legislator. And so if elected, I could be the first one. And it's important to give a voice to those who haven't had one, and to give a voice to everybody, and ensure that everybody, everybody feels welcomed in their homes, in their communities.
Okay. All right, can you talk about your experience working as a special assistant to the executive director of the Mass Office for Refugees and Immigrants, and how would you continue that work as a state rep?
So Massachusetts Office for Refugees and Immigrants was my first job out of college. They receive mostly federal funds to help refugees become self-sufficient here in Massachusetts. And sadly, with the Trump administration, no refugees have arrived, and particularly now with COVID-19, but even before then. And it's an extensive vetting process, and people don't recognize that. We've been in our homes for 2 months, and it's quite difficult, or many people have been in their homes for 2 months, and it's been quite difficult. But imagine being in a tent for 2 years, and that's how long refugees actually have to be in refugee camps before they will be resettled in the United States or elsewhere. And 1 in 10 people in our district, in the 12th Worcester district, are actually immigrants or refugees, and many more are children like myself and grandchildren of immigrants. Immigrants are so important to our economy and our communities. So here's some legislation that I support. The Safe Communities Act protects our community policing by keeping it separate from the federal immigration enforcement. I've had, again, many conversations with police officers talking about this, and they have been supportive of this too. I mean, we don't benefit. Our community police work so hard to build relationships with community members and with our kids. I know our police officers go to the school for the DARE program. Another bill that I support is a driver's license for undocumented individuals. Again, I've had conversations with police officers, and they are in favor of this as well, at least the ones that I've spoken to. Because what's happening is there's an increase in hit and run accidents because people don't have a license, so then they leave. So it's actually safer for us, for people who have licenses, for us in the community, for everybody to have a driver's license and to know the rules, to know the rules of the road.
Okay. All right. Okay, now, for someone like me, this next question is important, or one of the important things for me, anyhow. But folks in the 6 towns that you'll be representing have felt that there needs to be more to be done with public transportation. Sentiment is that townspeople pay into state transportation, but they don't receive quality services. We don't have access to getting to Worcester from Lancaster or Northborough or whatever, and people feel like they don't want to pay into that. So, what do you think?
I can't agree more. When I was working at the Office for Refugees and Immigrants, I would take the commuter rail from Grafton all the way into the city. And my husband actually takes it, again, prior to COVID-19, but he takes the commuter rail. Boy, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So where do we begin? One, so our district doesn't have direct access to a commuter rail, right? So some towns actually have received not our towns, but other towns who have full-time legislators advocating for them actually got funding for shuttle services. So that is most definitely something that I would be advocating for. Shuttle services to go to get to the commuter rail stations, and then for people who park at the commuter rails. In some of the stops, the one in Westboro, It's $6 a day. $6 a day. I can't tell you how many people I've seen actually walking, and it's not even a walkable area, to get to the commuter rail. And when it's raining or snowing, it's unacceptable.
Mhm.
And then once you're on the train, you pay so much money, hundreds of dollars a month. It's incredibly expensive, and you're not guaranteed a seat, especially during peak times. It's just not acceptable. I actually took my Girl Scouts a few years ago on the commuter rail into Boston. And for a lot of them, it was their first time on the commuter rail, and they were just disgusted and horrified. I'm like, yes. And they actually said to me, we need to write a letter to the governor. I'm like, yes, we should. And so even children knew that this was not okay. And I can't tell you how many, I love to travel, how many countries I've been to 10 years ago, 20 years ago. These were less developed countries that did not have metros or commuter rails at all. And now they do. And it's just, it's like beautiful, clean, affordable. And it's like, if they could do that, why can't we do that here?
Mhm. My next question would be for you is, obviously our world has dramatically changed over the last few weeks. We're all now faced with racism head on, and the call for police reform. Could you please address some of these issues and what you might be doing to try to make a change for us?
Yes. So I am very proud of the 12th Worcester District. Over the course of several weeks, the majority of our towns actually have hosted Black Lives Matter protests and rallies, and it's been heartwarming to see that so many people are in support of the Black Lives Matter, whether you are children or seniors and everybody in between. And the reason why we're gathering is because we are tired of seeing so many Black people being brutally murdered at the hands of police brutality. And if we're tired of seeing this, we're tired of seeing fathers and sons and daughters and mothers and human beings being murdered. And if we're tired of seeing this, imagine what it feels like as a Black person. Actually, I can't imagine what it feels like. But for the Black community to have faced this their entire lives is just heartbreaking. And enough is enough. And so in our country, the notion of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness sadly has not been the case for Black members of our community. Oftentimes people think about that slavery actually has ended. And if we actually look at our prison system, I would argue that slavery is alive and well in Massachusetts, in the United States, and throughout the world. And here's what I mean. I visited with Senate President Karen Spilka and Representative Jack Lewis and other legislators. And sadly, our current representative nor his staff was present, and this is kind of a continued behavior of the 12th Worcester District not being representative at a lot of legislative events. But we were at a women's prison facility. And I found out that the flags that we love and dear, that we have in our homes and in our municipal buildings, are actually made by prisoners, and they earn 13 cents per hour. People often think that prisoners have no expenses, and that's actually not true. Prisoners have to, if they want to talk to loved ones, they actually have to pay for that themselves. Women have to actually pay for their own sanitary products. And our jails are predominantly, our incarceration rates of Black people are just so much higher than us incarcerating white people for the same types of crimes. And we really have to look at these policies that are continuing and enabling this. And so I'm really very supportive of the Massachusetts Black and Latino Caucus's 10-point plan to ban chokeholds, to declare racism as a public health crisis, to create a peace officer standards and training that certifies police officers and enables decertification for misconduct and abuse. There is so much more that we collectively all have to do, and we have to look at our policies. We have to look at why are we spending $70,000 on incarcerating human beings, predominantly Black people, here in Massachusetts, when we're only spending $12,000 per student in our public school systems. You know, we're spending lots of money on PPE equipment for our police officers to keep them safe, and yet our teachers right now are on the streets fighting for PPE equipment for the fall and being told that there's not enough funding. So we really have to look at all the stakeholders, talk to all the stakeholders, talk to everyone involved, and really move forward and ensure that Black members of our community, people of color in our community, feel safe jogging in our streets, feel welcomed in our PTOs and our municipal buildings, and actually feel comfortable running for office. We really have to do more.
Mm-hmm. So, is there anything else that you would like us to know about you before we sign off?
Well, Denise, I want to thank you again for this opportunity. As I mentioned before, I commit to being a full-time legislator, working hard for our communities, because that's what people deserve. You deserve a public servant truly committed to serving the public. I encourage everyone to check out my website at roweforrep.com. Please check out my social media, see how hard I work. I love working hard. That's what I do. And so I hope that over the next few months, the remaining months, that I prove myself and that I earn your vote on September 1st.
Okay. Well, thanks again. Appreciate you being here, and maybe I'll catch up with you at one of your meet and greets when we can start doing that again, hopefully this summer, you know?
I would love that.
All right. Thanks again. This is Journeys. I'm Denise Hurley. We'll see you again. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. You're welcome.